Now, back to the substantive issues that we intend to look at this morning on Inside Pages. I did indicate that the government last week, Sunday, announced some sweeping measures to curb the rising cost of living, especially for fuel and food, in order to boost the country's failing economic growth. We saw the president in that televised national address, which was supposed to bring the country up to speed on the state of Ghana's economy and what measures were being rolled out to basically fix the problem that we have. We all are feeling it. Now, what we intend to do this morning is that we're going to be looking at those measures and to find out whether, one, they're practical, whether they give you hope, and whether, for me, they are the real issues that the president has touched on. But again, related to that is some very interesting development in Parliament, where the majority leader is actually telling us that he's telling us that most or almost all the MPs in Parliament, which is 138 majority MPs, are in support of the calls for the finance minister to be giving a sack or to be dismissed. The finance minister has himself spoken in the course of the week, and he has said that we should trust him and that he knows what he's about, and he will deliver the goods. So that's where we are now. But KuMe Preko Reloaded is also coming off. It's starting from the Obra Spot here in Accra. That's Kwame Nkrumah Circle. It's been organized by a private legal practitioner, that's Martin Kwebu, who says he wants the president to resign. Feasible? I don't know, but that's where we are now. So I'm going to be introducing my resource person shortly, but also the WhatsApp line is 0249 155 646. 0249 155 646. Now, this is how we intend to structure this morning's conversation. So, we will bring you the president's measures he has outlined, raft of measures he has outlined, and also we'll juxtapose that as against that which the former president, John Dramani Mahama, also outlined, which are his own solutions that he's proffering, that he believes that when we adhere to or we implement, it would bring some relief to Ghanaians. So we'll do that. We'll do that back to back. So we'll look at the two, measures that have been outlined. And then also we'll play you the majority leaders' comments on Ken Ofori-Atta and some other videotapes that we have on the show. So Abdallah, if we're ready, okay, so let me introduce my resource persons, and then we'll come and look at the two different solutions that have been proffered by the two statesmen of this country. That's the president and also the former president. So I have on my immediate right, Mr. Edgar Redo. He's an insurance marketer and also an economic analyst or financial analyst. He's joined us in the studio. In fact, he's back here because you actually want him back. You said you've not had enough of him, and so you want him back. And so we have been able to get him back on the show this morning. And also, same with Michael Niagbe, who works with the Frederick Ebex Foundation or Stiff Tongue. Michael, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning, bro.
And it's another Saturday morning.
Of course.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure seeing you. And also, Mr. Edgar Redo, good morning. It's good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
And you are dressed up as though you'll be joining the KuMe Preko Reloaded.
No.
Okay, you are not joining.
No.
Okay, all right. Michael, are you joining the KuMe Preko Reloaded? You're joining the KuMe Preko Reloaded. I see. But the cause, you're asking the president to resign. I mean, how? Come on, isn't that far-fetched? The president won't resign. So aren't you wasting your time with this?
Right. So it depends from, which angle you're coming from.
Okay.
Saying the president won't resign.
Yes.
I don't know whether it presupposes that you know that there's a president who is not a listening president, and for that matter, he won't resign because the Constitution creates that, opportunity for a president to resign, means by which the president may vacate the presidency. One of them is by resigning. So the drafters of our Constitution intended that one day a president who believes in democratic values,
yes,
a president who listens to the calls of the people,
right,
a president who believes in participatory democracy, that it's also about the voices of the people. Could one day say, okay, they're asking me to resign. Based on some factors here and there, I think I would resign. So for you to say the president would resign clearly speaks to who the president is. At least what you think of even the president.
No, it's not about who he is. But I mean, I didn't in this fourth Republican Constitution since 1992. I don't recall that we've had a group of people hitting the streets of Accra and asking a president to resign. The president says, "Well, because some Ghanaians want me to resign, I'm resigning." It never happened. That's what I'm saying, that it won't happen.
It's like many decades ago when you say Ghana has oil in the oceans,
right?
Everybody will say no because there is no evidence suggesting same. Indeed, we've had records of exploration year upon year out, just searching for oil. But today, Ghana has oil. So if it's more of, it hasn't.
So you want the president to set.
Who believes in democracy, who believes that the people's voice, what the people think, what the people are part of governance, and for that matter, they are high stakeholders as far as the governance process is concerned. When you listen and you appreciate these ethos of democracy, it should be easy for you to resign. You see, it happens in elsewhere. We say, yes, we haven't gotten there yet. We don't have that culture of public office holders being accountable to the people shamelessly. I mean, for us, it's more of an ego-driven thing. When you wield power, what it means is that it's your way and no other else. And so when people call on you to resign and the Constitution provides for that. Indeed, I think it's actually a very rigid provision we have in the Constitution. The Constitution should have made it very easy because we've employed the president. That's the fundamental thing.
Right.
Now, if we are not happy with the president's work, though we may have agreed on some terms of reference, matters relating to tenure and all that, being 4 years, or you go even for another 4 years, that does not mean that when at any point in time, Ghanaians feel that, listen, things are not going well, any functional democracy would have provided for a provision that wouldn't wait for political pressure to be mounted on the president, the presidency, for the president to find reason in even the call for him to resign. And so you go to other jurisdictions, they make use of referendum, for instance. I mean, they have their own threshold, their own standards they've developed. And listen, when you have, let's say, majority of this number of Ghanaians calling on the presidency to resign, that is sufficient to trigger a referendum. So now leave it to Ghanaians to decide that should the president go or not. We haven't evolved our democracy to that extent yet.
Absolutely.
But of course, we make use of what is available. And currently, the Constitution intends that the president may one day resign. And so if that opportunity exists, and it's not as though when the president resigns, a lacuna is created. There are, measures in the Constitution. It's the vice who takes over. If the president and vice resign, the speaker takes over. When that has happened, within 3 months, you are to organize elections. We can look at the feasibility of it, whether indeed the speaker taking over and having only 3 months. Do we have the structures in place within 3 months, quickly ask political parties to come up, begin campaigning, and then some may say, well, we can't do it because sometimes we've had a runoff. Tain, for instance, they have few days to prepare and to still hit the campaign grounds running. So it depends. But at least we have a clear-cut laid provision in the Constitution, which I see to be a bit rigid, but for now, that is the only opportunity available to Ghanaians because we don't have that space of, organizing referendum. Indeed, one can actually even interpret the Constitution to some extent to also imply that, where, for instance, they say matters of public interest, blah, blah, some may even go for referenda. This whole issue about the president being called upon to resign may be of a high public interest matter now, which, so there are several means of basically interpreting the standards and the provisions we have. But I think it's also a test on our democracy, the test on the president as well, as to whether indeed he's a Democrat.
I see. That's interesting.
Of course, Edgar seemed to be.
I know. I'm sure you know why Edgar is giggling.
It will be interesting too.
Because I'm sure he'll say, well, thanks for sounding very academic. But there's also a reality check. But Edgar, I'm saying that. This appears to be an exercise in futility. It appears.
You mean the demonstration?
Yes,
or,
because the key objective,
or the
demonstration,
or the purpose
because
for the demonstration.
yes, for the purpose or the key objective
the president to
is to ask the
resign.
president to resign. He's not going to resign. You know.
No, yes, I mean, basically what you're saying is the reality, but I think that my brother raises some very, fundamental points that we need to sort of, as it were, break it down, to see. Because the problem is that, assuming it does happen, do we have the structures in place?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a complete no.
Yeah.
We don't have the structures in place, right? So maybe you're now trying to test the waters and then trying to tell future developments that, look, there's a possibility that we can get to this kind of level. So what are you guys putting in place such that should we reach there, the structures are already in place? I think in this, our country, I think the last election, 2020, cost us over $400 million or something like that. Okay, and you want to ask yourself the question, is that money available now? Certainly not. You don't have the money available. And all the other things that needs to go with the preparation, making sure that certain things are, no, we are not there yet. So no matter what it is, it's not something that is feasible and will happen. Forgetting about the fact that certainly the president will not resign. But as I said, the points you raise are strong points, real fundamentals, and we need to position ourselves that should the future come up with something like this, have we positioned ourselves to be able to meet it? So I think it's a good call that we have to look at.
Now let's do this. Let's watch Martin Kpebu. Martin Kpebu, the private legal practitioner. Martin, in fact, he's the brain. This whole demonstration is his brainchild. But he held a news conference yesterday and outlined the reasons why the demonstration is so important to Ghanaians. So let's watch Martin Kpebu. When we come back, we'll analyze some of the things he has said, and then we will relate it to the president's, televised speech on the state of the economy and what his government intends to do to take us out of this situation. Let's watch Martin Kpebu.
From the hardships we are all suffering daily, that this country is in an economic quagmire. We fall into a deep crater as a result of the reckless borrowing and other forms of misgovernance by President Akufo Addo. We are dying. Citizens are dying. Citizens can't afford food. Citizens are starving, all because of malgovernance by President Akufo Addo. It's never happened that you have a president in office, and every time that the country borrows, the president's family becomes richer. How? Every time the country borrows, the president's family becomes richer. How? This can't continue. It's not, Ghana doesn't belong to President Akufo Addo's family. We can't borrow all the time and have Data Bank becoming richer all the time. The country becomes poorer and Data Bank becomes richer. This, without more, is sufficient for President Akufo Addo to resign. You see how the incentive to borrow, because his family will become richer, has led us to overborrow, and today our cedi has totally collapsed. That now, when you need $1, you need at least 14 Ghana cedis. When at the beginning of the year, $1 was just 6 cedis, 40 pesos. This has never happened. And so to that extent, based on Article 35 of our Constitution, which asks for probity, accountability, etc., which are also repeated in the preamble of the Constitution, citizens have a duty, as stated in Article 41, to ask the president to resign. And this is not the first time that a president of Ghana is going to resign. So it means that we'll have a new president within the 3 months. That's to say that today, 4th November, if President Akufo Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia were to resign, it means that latest by 4th of February, a new president will be sworn in. So we would have had the elections and a new president sworn in. And look, people of Ghana, please, let's not despair. Let's go for it. Let Akufo Addo and Bawumia resign. Look, you'll be amazed at how the international community will welcome this new development, that our democracy would have been strengthened, that the president would have listened to the cry of the masses and resigned. And as a result of this, you'll be amazed at how much goodwill we will gain. Our debt, the new president can renegotiate for extension and all the other things that it will require. Trust me, when such a momentous event occurs, the international community is often willing to help.
Okay, so that was the presser organized by a private legal practitioner, Martin Kpebu, outlining the reasons why the KuMe Preko Reloaded is coming off. Now, just a bit of a background. In 1995, the likes of Dr. Charles Rekrubobe organized a similar thing, the likes of Kwesi Pratt, the current president himself, or the sitting president himself, Nana Addo Dankwa, Akufo Addo, because they were protesting against the increment in VAT, on the introduction of VAT, actually. And so the morale here is that they say they are taking lessons from that 1995 event and they want to replay it. For they say it's about the principle. So that's where we are now. Now, let me come back to my resource persons and ask them about what they make of the reasons that he's giving, whether those reasons are legitimate enough to ask the president to resign. Michael, are the reasons that have been given by Martin Kpebu good enough to ask the president to resign on that account?
Well, so when you listen to Martin, clearly, he never minced words.
Right.
And he basically hit the nail right on the head. I mean, the justification for the call on the president to resign, clearly from his statement, is premised on a confluence of factors. He mentioned one. But again, he touched on a few others. So the fact that the general living conditions, standards of living falling, and for which reason Ghanaians are dying. Indeed, that is the truth. Until just last week, Wednesday, we were having a conversation in the office. And I just needed to now take account of my daily expenditure. And I realized that commuting from Adenta to Osu, my office, in and out, I burn to the tune of about 200 cedis worth of fuel. And if you are to do this every day, it means that for a month, for fuel alone, you're looking at 5,000 to 6,000 cedis. And so interestingly, that does not mean that at the chop pay. For all you know, the fuel chop my pay all, and I'm even borrowing to basically sustain the fact that I have to go to work. So it does not mean that at the chop pay. Precisely. And I mean, and I know how Edgar wants to be mischievous this morning, but clearly, Ghanaians are going through hell. No two ways about that. And what I've observed also is this. I'd wanted to even post this on Facebook last week, that when you help someone, say, a couple of days ago financially, and the person comes back again, seeking for help, it does not mean that the person thinks that you have. For all you know, the reality is that the person is struggling. The person still had no options, and you still remain the only option. Because I've been having a lot of requests, and sometimes I would want to reflect. It's not the case that people think you have or you own a bank whatsoever. It is the reality of their life which is creating the situation. And this hasn't been the case some months back or years back. And I'm sure we may all experience this. People calling on daily basis for support. Someone that you may have just even helped 2-3 days ago. So the reality is tough. It's very difficult. And that's the situation. Now, we are not saying that a society should never get into crisis. It is part of our living that you get into crisis, you get into difficult times. But some things actually now become the common denominator. That listen, when you get there, how would you manage the process? And if you're a smart government, you should know that you may get there. That is why societies build for the future. They envisage that anything can happen. So you're always cautious of how you live today. And all we are talking about is connected to our public finances. So how you spend today, and when you listen to the president, for instance, and I'm sure we'll come to his speech, but again, he was heavy on revenue, we having to increase revenue and all that. But zilch on expenditure. Of course, you will talk about the measures, and I know we'll have time to deal with it. But you see, the reality is that people are struggling. And so when Martin says we are dying, that's the reality. And we seem not to be seeing any hope. In fact, since I didn't listen to the president, and it's not deliberate, but it didn't also occur to me that the president really was going to talk, though I've seen that. And I am sure a number of Ghanaians are in this situation. So now, the outcome would be that after the president spoke, perhaps one indicator we need to be looking out for is whether he's been able to carry the nation to the understanding that, listen, this is the reality we are stuck with. Indeed, the president admitted in his speech that we are in a crisis. And if he says so, he's not exaggerating. And I could feel the pain from the president's statement. But we've seen the president all too often with that posture of seriousness, and yet nothing happens. We've seen the president talk, give directives, and nothing happens. And so based on recent history and track record, it becomes difficult for us to believe what you say and for you to even carry us along. Because you clearly need a leader who wouldn't mince words on where we are today, the specific things we have to do. And in situations like this, optics matter. You don't say you are reducing, cutting, is it 30%, whatever, something we can't see. You're already not trusted. So it's difficult for us to believe that. But when you cut numbers, when you trim down the numbers, the staff population in the presidency, for instance, you merge ministries, these are things that are visible, that any Ghanaian would say, okay, we can see something tangible being done. And that's also a process in carrying us along. So it's a confluence of a number of factors. And particularly, I wasn't surprised with your question, your statement, that the president isn't going to resign. It's because subconsciously, you know who we are talking about. So the call for him to resign is a test case as far as our democratic journey is concerned. And don't forget, in recent times, we've had a number of precedents. So this would be, as he puts it, a momentous event. A precedent that could materialize in unconventional times. You use sometimes unconventional methods to arrive at outcomes that may help the common good. And what is being called for is legal, is constitutional, that he resigns. So I don't see any issue. I don't see any challenge with the call, unless you don't appreciate where we find ourselves now as a country. It's that terrible. And I fear, a couple of days ago, the traffic situation, it appears there is ease of traffic and all that. People are parking their cars.
0249-155-646. Now, I'm going to bring in Mr. Edgar Redu to join this conversation. I also need to apologize for this. Mr. Joe Jackson of Dalex Finance was supposed to have been with us. He's not here yet. We've not been able to reach him. We just hope that everything is fine. But if he's able to join us at some point, we'll be more than happy to have him here. He never misses an opportunity to be on the show, but for some reason, we've not been able to reach him. And we're hoping and praying that everything is fine. Now, I'm going to come to Mr. Edgar Redu to pick his thoughts on what Mr. Martin Kpebu has said, outlining the reasons why today's KuMe Preko demo reloaded is important. And then, of course, he will dovetail into the president's speech as well. He gave the president's televised speech on Sunday. But let me do this. Now, the Asojaman MP, Mr. Thomas Ampem Darko, has been making some very interesting suggestions because the MPs are feeling the pinch as well. And he's making a very interesting suggestion. In fact, he made a very interesting suggestion in Parliament. Let's watch what he he had to say, and then I'll come to Mr. Edgar Redu.
I went to the Gold filling station at Lagos. My light was on, and I asked them to fill my tank. I got down to the shop to buy something. When I came back, 3,000 cedis was my bill. 3,000, Mr. Speaker. I had 2,100. I had to call my colleague, Honorable Jaja, to send me money through the Momo that I'm avoiding to use before I was able to pay my bills. So, Mr. Speaker, looking at the kind of business that we have, is it not possible to we can stay for 6 hours a day. Instead of coming 2 hours, we go back, drive here 2 hours, we go back. Part the day, if it's even 8 hours, we'll be willing to stay, do the business for like two days, and then save. That way, we can save like 500 cedis on fuel every week. And this will also be in line with the proposal by President Mahama to organizations to allow those who can work from home to do so, because the fuel situation is killing us, Mr. Speaker.
Constituency, that's Thomas Ampem Darko. He says he's proposing to Parliament that, look, we cannot continue to buy fuel at this rate. It's really, really, hitting our pockets very hardly. And so what we intend to do is that what we're proposing is that let us sit for at least twice in a week, even if it's for 8 hours. Let's finish the business of Parliament, and then we can stay at home for the rest of the 3 days. And so now, we're showing something very interesting on your screen. So look at this. If you're for a Benz Sprinter, to fill the tank, if you're using a Benz Sprinter, you need 1,644.3 to be able to fill your Benz Sprinter. And also, but if you're using a Kia Picanto and you want to fill your tank, it's 629.65. I mean, those days it was just 150, 200, you can fill the tank. It's now more than 600. If you're using a Toyota Corolla, which is a 1.8 liter engine, to fill the tank is almost 1,000, 989.45. A Toyota Land Cruiser now, which is an LC300, you would need 1,978.9, which is almost 2,000 to fill it. If you're using a Toyota Land Cruiser Series 200 diesel V8, you need to be able to fill your tank 2,184.57. Whoa. 2,184.57. Whoa. Wow. My producer tells me, Abdallah tells me, he decided to park his Acura at home because he can't. Yeah, well, Edgar is really struggling. Yes, you've seen his Land Cruiser, and I was just about to mention it. So I can understand his pain. I can actually share his pain. But Edgar, let me come back to you now. We heard Martin Kpebu and the reasons he's giving us to why today's KuMe Preko demonstration is important. But when Michael Abe was analyzing the reasons, in fact, he decided to look at just one. He decided to perhaps ignore the Ken matter and all of that. But the president has answers to the concerns that Martin Kpebu has raised. And the president talks about the fact that, first of all, this is not my fault. You can call it a force majeure. It's not my fault. I mean, I didn't bring about COVID. I didn't bring about the Russian-Ukraine war. I was sitting somewhere, and these exogenous factors has hit me so hard. In fact, it's hit the whole world so hard. I'm saying that I have the team that can take us out of this, economic quagmire. Why do we continue to blame the president for a problem that he didn't cause? So you can match the two. You've heard Martin, and then also the president's response to some of these concerns that have been raised, but not just by Martin, but by everybody.
Basically, what Martin is saying are things that, should I say, I mean, we all know it, we all feel it, we all see it, all right? Especially the hardship, the speed at which our purchasing power has been reduced, the level at which the purchasing power itself is not there, The president acknowledges this in his
address.
A very uninspiring address.
Uninspiring?
Very, very uninspiring.
Okay. All right.
Because you see, one of the questions I ask myself is that at the end of such events, within the presidency or the party, do they have a team that do the assessment or the evaluation, the impact of such speeches?
Okay.
Do they really do to find out how the recipients, the citizens, how they received the words of the president?
Okay.
Because you see, it's very, very important for the president to have a feedback as to whether he really made an impact or, as it were, shambles.
Right.
He needs to know that, okay? After listening to the president...
But why do you think that's important?
It is very important. You need to gauge whether the people understand you, whether the people agree with you, whether the people are going to hold you, they will take your word, they will rally with you and all. It's very, very important. You don't just talk for talking's sake.
Okay.
You see, because you are coming to speak to the people. There's something that you are expecting from them. And the question is, did you make them feel that way to give you that support?
Right.
So it's very important that that assessment is made.
Done.
Okay, it's very, very important. I was really sitting down, high hopes, trying to hear something. Okay? It's been difficult for me to come up with the exact word. I can't use the word disappointment, but certainly it was not what I was expecting.
Sorry, let me rudely interrupt. We have to go to Henry Kwesi-Bedu, who is a reporter on the ground where the protest is happening. Henry has something for us. Henry.
There's another 3-day demonstration. It looks like this government or the Akufo Addo-led administration is like immune to demonstrations. They don't, when people do demonstration and they speak their mind, talk about what they would want to do, what they would want to be done for them, they don't seem to do anything to it. What else would you do differently from what we've already seen and what you're about to do that will make President Akufo Addo change the lives of the ordinary Ghanaians as he's promised them in the year 2016?
Well, they are not immune to demonstrations. You remember our first demonstration, we did not call for the resignation of the president. We said things were hard and the president should take some steps. It is out of our demonstration that the president decided to open talks with the IMF and start the IMF negotiations. After that demonstration, we thought things were going to improve. Things have not improved from that time to today. And that's why today we are on the street again. This time round, not for him to fix the mess, this time round we want him to step down. And on the 15th, 16th demonstration again, we want him to step down. And we know that we have the support of Ghanaians. And today, the way Ghanaians have come out in their numbers, and we know they are going to come out on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, out hugely in their numbers, we know that the president have no option than to oblige with a call to step aside, so that somebody who understands the suffering of the masses, a father who understands the suffering of his children, a father who can see his dying children and offer assistance, will come and take over the control of this country and steer out of austerity, because we cannot continue on this path of difficulty and severe hardship anymore.
He spoke to Ghanaians, whereas that is the fellow Ghanaians series that he's been doing. He said that he's going to be doing a lot of that in the near future. Don't you agree with him with some of the things that he said? The 12 points he's put in place to see the economy, or the total revamp of the economy in a short, medium and long term. What do you have to say to the 12 pointers that he put across? He said the Bank of Ghana is doing a few things to ensure that we see the cedi appreciate. From May 2023, they are going to put in steps to see the gradual ban on the importation of grains, of sugar, of rice, of all the other things that are seeing the cedi depreciate. Don't you agree with him on some of the things that he said during his almost 1 week speech?
Well, it's too late for the president. He had 6 years. 6 years to bring prosperity to the people. But he only brought hardship. And in the midst of hardship, he only came to speak French to a suffering people. Which father speaks French to a what is French to a hungry Ghanaian? The president said he engaged stakeholders before he addressed us. There were 3 critical things that traders, importers were expecting from the president. No policy measure to tackle inflation, no policy measure to tackle the exchange rate depreciation, nothing. Even importers were asking the president to hedge the exchange rate at the port for them so that it can stabilize prices. He snapped them. So it is too late for the president. 6 years of hardship is enough. His time is up. We can't be patient for the president anymore. We gave him 4 years. We've given him another 2 years. This cannot continue. It is too late. It is too late. He's demonstrated that he is clueless and he can't fix the problem. It is too late. It is too late.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Let me bring in this gentleman who is here. He is a driver. Boss, Sisi Ania Koro, drivers, Kwasemamu.
Menua, I wrote 7 down sell my. Now, there, ya woman say, Abra, Unia, ya bear mate drivers for change, you know. Under John Mama, now you talk diesel, 3 CDs, 27 pesos per liter. 4.5 liters na ma 1 gallon. Na 14 CDs, 715 pesos. Enti driver na auto diesel 100 gallons every boko at the bank no. Na sika wo hia wo de beto ye 1,471 Ghana cedi 50 pesos. And now diesel kwajina 23 CDs 49 pesos per liter. 4.5 no. Emma 105 Ghana cedi 705 pesos. Driver now auto the same 100 gallons at every boko aba enkrahano. As onya 10,570 Ghana cedi 50 pesos. Na tigare kura no okofa na besum nanka obebo sa aka no. Enti ye wu say Akufo Addo no oman no ontimi mmu age ni nsam yesre no onu ansi fom. Na no aye compre no o se COVID. What the question Russia Ukraine. Say onu ani MP member of parliament say esa enye COVID enye Ukraine nemom ni finance minister no na omon homo de onyina di oso onyina di enam pro afrinity ye nto aba ma keno foriata era keno foriata Ghana for ankasa akopam no ye to Obama na Akufo Addo enti ni men no entimi mwa na ni ehun say oni men bia onsi from masundue mra no man no awotomrem na so so onsi dia ye sama ne manyankopon say awrade na ankasa onyoma no na asundue mra man no.
So that was a driver. We just spoke to the. He thinks that they are feeling the heat and it's getting unbearable for them. With regards to the increment in the fuel we buy in this country, I have with me here Ras Mubarak. He is former member for the people of Kumbungu. He has joined the demonstrators here this morning. Ras, you are welcome to Metro TV, sir.
Thank you very much.
Why have you joined this demonstration?
Well, clearly, all of us are suffering. You know, people can't afford their rents. Ordinary Ghanaians can't even afford 3 square meals a day. Yet we have a president who has closed his ears, you know, to the suffering of the masses. It was Ghanaians who elected a president. The good people of Ghana are telling the president that he should let his finance minister go. The president is demonstrating to us that he doesn't want to listen to us.
Literally, he thinks that the finance minister has really done marvelous at his position.
The finance minister clearly profits whenever Ghana, you know, contracts loans, you know, and if you look at the levels of suffering that we are experiencing in the country, never in our history have we seen these levels of suffering in Ghana. Even we smokers are complaining. First time in history, you know, that the price of a roll of weed has become very expensive. Today, cocoa, ordinary cocoa, is what? 3 cedis. Today, you can't even buy it, you know? So the sentiments of the people are genuine. And that is, it wasn't for nothing that we had a price stabilization levy. So that when prices of fuel goes up, you know, government would be able to cushion ordinary Ghanaians who are feeling the heat, you know, from increasing prices of fuel around the world. Unfortunately, we have a government that is so big, that is eating up all the nation's resources. Several ministers, you know, several deputies, several deputy CEOs at institutions who are literally marking time. At the office of the president, he's made 0 attempts to reduce the number of staff at the office of the president. He's made 0 attempt to cut down on the profligacy. Give him a month or 2, you see him start globetrotting, you know? And all of these are the reasons why people feel that the president is out of touch, and for which reason he ought to resign, for which reason his finance minister ought to go, for which reason the head of the economic management team ought to go as well.
He has said that, and in his last speech that he delivered to the Ghanaians, with his DAB, the fellow Ghanaian speech, he said that there are global factors. Those are the reasons why the Ghanaian economy is not performing as it is supposed to be. There are global factors. He said that Australia is struggling, people in France are struggling, people in Germany, people in the UK are all struggling. Don't you agree with him that it's due to the Russian-Ukrainian war and also the COVID-19 pandemic?
What we are experiencing is as a result of the president's incompetence. You know, it's as a result of his government's cluelessness. That is the reason. Our neighbors in Côte d'Ivoire and other parts of the West African sub-region are not experiencing what we are experiencing. Look at how our currency has collapsed. You know, look at the economy. Look at how jobs have been lost up and down the country. So clearly, you define who a good leader is in times of crisis. And under this crisis, our president, who made so much noise about holding the magic wand to the conditions of the good people of Ghana.
He's done it before. When he was elected into office, the economy wasn't growing as we expected it to grow. They came in together with his economic management team. They moved the economy. It was growing at about 7.4%. We saw what they did. They stabilized the city. And what is happening is of no fault of theirs. He thinks that it's global.
I'm telling you that these factors are not entirely global. Yes, we've got Russia, Ukraine, but I've also indicated to you that other countries, our neighbors, are doing well. So why has our economy, our currency collapsed and others are doing so well? Clearly, it's as a result of the failings of the government that is so big, that is eating up every little resources that we have in the payment of salaries of people sitting at the office of the president who are doing nothing. You know, several deputy CEOs who are absolutely doing nothing. And we want the president to reduce the size of government. We want the president to, with immediate effect, ask the finance minister to go. We want the president himself, you know, by the 15th of this month, you know, to exit if he can't sack his finance minister. And we also want to see the so-called whiz kid of the economy, the head of the economic management team, go, because clearly what we see is cluelessness. Clearly what we see is hollow thinking in the management of our country's affairs. They have failed monumentally. They have failed the cocoa sellers. They have failed the shoe shine boys. They have failed the trot drivers. They have failed teachers. They have failed nurses, doctors. They have failed students. They have even failed weed smokers.
Thank you very much. That was the former MP for the people of Kumbungu, Ras Mubarak. So from what you are seeing, Moro, from behind us, the leaders of the demonstration, that is Martin Kpebu, Council Martin Kpebu and his team, are addressing the people who have marched up here. We are picking up signals that from any moment they will be starting the march. They just spoke to the police and we will be starting the march very soon. But I have with me one gentleman. Boss, what's your name and where did you come from?
My name is Musa. I'm the chairman of Street Friends of Ghana.
You are the chairman of what?
Street Friends of Ghana.
Okay. Why have you joined this demonstration?
My message is very simple. Nanadu is demonstrating his normal ways. He used to say that all die be die. But this all die be die, he's not using weapons. He's using anger to kill all Ghanaians at a time. That's why I'm here. Because now in this country, everybody is hungry.
Everybody is hungry?
Yeah, everybody is hungry. Nothing is happening, my brother. Dollar is moving, fuel is moving. If you buy something today, within the next 30 minutes, they have increased the price. So now, it's all that he said. That's why he's demonstrating it.
How much was your expenses in the past and how much are you spending now? The reason why you feel that, yes, we are all in the country and we feel the heat as well, but how much are you spending now? Has it gone up so much that you think that things have gotten out of hand?
Very, 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 because I stay at Dakuma. Before, if I'm coming, the trotro fare is supposed to be 2 cedi 50 pesos. Now it's 5 cedi 50 pesos. Just imagine all the transport I'll take in and out. Now you can't buy food 15 cedis and satisfy. Now just pure water sachets. If you buy 4, it's 2 cedis. So I mean, everybody is spending abnormal.
All right, sure. Thank you very much. I'll speak to other demonstrators who are here. Let me see your placard. This is boldly written, Ohia Pe Dede. And you remember the reason why this particular jargon or term has become very popular was when the president Akufo Addo spoke in his address and said that Sika impedede to wit, money doesn't like noise. Wherever there is noise, there is no money. That is why he doesn't want people talking down the Ghana city. He feels that it was the noise that was around the Ghana city, the reason why the city depreciated so much. Boss, what's your name and where are you coming from?
Yeah, my name is Hayes Bright. I'm coming all the way from Ashoman Estate.
Okay. Why have you joined this demonstration?
Yes, my message is simple. You know, we heard the president on radio. We heard him jumping from one media house to the other, talking about how poor the economy was, talking about the CD in 2016. He spoke a lot, and today he's telling us that Ohiam Pedede, Sikam Pedede. We rather want to let him know that mismanagement, Sika, and mismanagement. Have you ever seen a rich man crying before? No, it is the poor who will cry. I joined this demo to speak against the rent issue in Ghana. You know, people talk about hospitals, roads, lack of roads, and this and that. But I have taken it upon myself to talk about rent issue in Ghana. The constitution demands that, the constitution is clear on this. It says that we shouldn't pay more than 6 months. But now, we are paying 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. If you want a shop today, you have to pay 5 years. As youth of the country, how are we going to get that money from? Look at the high cost of living today. But we still have to look for money to pay 5 years rent. How possible? How are we going to survive? It's for that reason why I have taken it upon myself that as others talk about hospitals, as others talk about road, I will talk about rent. It is in the constitution. So I want the leaders to rise up and implement that. That is all I'm asking for.
I've seen Ohia Pedede. Why Ohia Pedede?
Oh, boss, have you ever seen a rich man crying over food? Have you ever seen a rich man crying over fuel prices? Have you ever seen a rich man crying before? It is only the poor that will cry. It is only the poor who are hungry, and they are those who are going to cry into Ohia Pedede. I expected the president to rather put it this way, that Sika and mismanagement. Sika and mismanagement.
And you think he's mismanaging the economy?
It is clear. It is clear. He needs to do more. You know,
he doesn't feel so. We heard him in his address. He said he's done it before. Remember the COVID era? He said what his government doesn't know what to do is to bring dead people from life. But they know how to revive the economy. He said we are in crisis. He agreed. But they would fix it. They will revamp the economy. Don't you agree with him?
I applauded him when he said that. But with time I've seen that statement is the biggest scam statement since the history of Ghana. It is the biggest scam message since the history of Ghana. Now, he said that we can bring back the economy. But from that time till now, have you seen us reviving? Have you seen us reviving the economy? Has it been possible? We have not been able to revive any economy, and rather we are going down. Listen, I'm taking them by their own words. The things Dr. Bawumia said on Daily, the things Dr. Bawumia kept educating us about the city, about the fall of the whatever, and the economy, and what's the equilibrium and whatever. At the end, is that what we are seeing? I am holding them accountable to the words they gave us for me to go and campaign for them. I campaign fervently for the NPP government. I campaign for them to win the election. And today, if all the things they told me, which I stood on to campaign for them, I'm not seeing that, don't you think I have the right to ask questions? That is why I'm here. Right. I demand accountability. The things they promised us is not what they are giving us. It's like somebody has promised you pizza and the person ends up giving you a chomo. Right. That is it.
Sure. Thank you very much. So the scenes you are seeing now are the police officers who are gearing up. We've picked up information that in about a matter of minutes, the march, that is the proper march, will start. They are in their riot control gear, and they are here in the announcement to ensure the safety of...
Well, so those were live shots of what's happening at the Obra Sport, KuMe Preko demo, reloaded, which has been organized by a private legal practitioner. That's a Martin Kwebu. We saw that interaction that Henry Kwesi Bedu has been having with some of the demonstrators, and we're told that in a matter of minutes, the demonstration, the protest will start all the way from Obra Sport, and they would also take to some of the principal streets of Accra. I'm not too sure what the route is, but I'm sure when Henry comes back, he would walk us through what the route is. So let's come back in-house. So from time to time, we'll be joining the feed. So that's how today's program has been scheduled. And Mr. Edgar Redu and Mike would have to bear with us on this because today it's a very special day because of this big event that's happening. So, Mr. Edgar Redu, let me come back to you. I asked you a question about whether we can legitimately fault the government, of course, the president, for what is happening to us, because we've heard the president say time and again that we are in this situation not through any fault of mine, but it is because of some exogenous factors. And here we talk about what's happening in the Black Sea, Russia, Ukraine war, and then COVID. And so the president, I know how to bring the economy back. I don't know how to bring somebody who's dead back alive, but I know how to bring the economy back. So why fault me? Why blame me?
Well, let me say, to summarize it, our problems are two. One, death. That's debt distress. Our failure to make due our commitments by repaying our loans.
Okay.
That's number one. Mm-hmm. And number two, the depreciation of our currency, which is having all the negative effects on all the human beings in this country. So there are two issues.
Right.
Good. This issue relating to COVID and then Russia and Ukraine is gone on for so many days. And it's sad that...
For so many months.
It keeps coming up.
Yes.
But if you listen to the president in his own statement, right, as he puts it, the president suggests that we recovered after COVID.
Yes.
Because he says that Ghana's economy grew by a remarkable 5.4% in 2021.
Yes.
Signifying a strong recovery from the 0.5% growth recorded the previous year due to COVID-19 pandemic. This is the president's own statement.
Right.
Saying that we recovered from COVID with such a growth. Why come and then continue saying COVID has put us where we are? Your own statement, which you delivered on Sunday, says we recovered from COVID at a rate of 0.5 to now 5.4. Okay. It says, in fact, in the last quarter of 2021, our economy grew at 7%. And this 7-8% has been touted as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So if we did grow, and first quarter of 2021, we grew at 7%, then there's no point in blaming COVID. There's no point in blaming COVID. Now
so you mean that this particular reason or statement that the president has made collapses the argument about COVID being the cause of economic woes?
Yes, he is making a statement.
Okay.
But he goes on further to say, only for the Russian invasion of Ukraine in the first quarter of the year to aggravate the effects of COVID.
Okay. So there's a disconnect.
I mean, you see what that, right. Only for that to aggravate and plunge the global economy into even greater turmoil from where it has been not recovered. But you see, the issue is this.
So the demonstration has started, as you can see on the screens. So whilst we're talking, our viewers would also be monitoring what's happening around the Obrasport area. So the demo has started. The marching has just begun. So let's see how it goes. As and when there's something to report on, we'll go to Henry. Yes, please go ahead.
You see, now, this issue about debt repayment, the debt sustainability, okay, why we don't seem to see the real problem, but we are always trying to blame COVID and then, what's the name? Russia.
COVID. Yes, COVID and then the Russia-Ukraine war, yes.
In 2018, Mike, you have your laptop there. Yeah. You can Google it, you see. A debt crisis seems to have come out of nowhere. This 2018, and in fact, April 20th, 2018, right? And this is coming from no less a person than Mashoud Ahmed. 20 years as a top official of the International Monetary Fund, he spearheaded the historic agreement to wipe off the slates. He was the one that made sure that 2/3 of our debts, the HIPIC, were wiped off. Mashoud Ahmed, a top guy from the International Monetary Fund, right? He is bringing this report out. And he says that, look, where we stand today, right, it is not anything but our own mismanagement. Bro, I said, Mike.
Yes.
You can Google it. You'll get it.
He states that specifically in that report.
Exactly.
Can you read verbatim what he says?
Look.
So somebody doesn't say you're
no, that's why I
paraphrasing.
said
Yes.
anyone who's sitting by the machine, a debt crisis seems to have come out of nowhere. Okay. This is April 20th, 2018.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to Google it will get it there.
Yeah.
6 more countries are also already considered in debt distress. Because even though they haven't outright defaulted, they've reached a point where they are making only intermittent loan payments of cutting deep into their operation budget to pay off their debt. These are Chad, Eritrea, Somalia, South Sudan, and Zimbabwe. The remaining 16 are considered at high risk of falling into debt distress. Africa. Now, there are these are two mostly countries in sub-Saharan Africa, such as Ghana, Zambia, and the Central African Republic. But there's a list also includes 7 nations from other regions, such as Afghanistan, Haiti, Tajikistan, Yemen, and what have you. All this is captured in the report. So if in 2018 you were told that you were highly debt, you could not be paying your debt, I don't see how COVID and Russia-Ukraine can come in to say that this is the situation. He goes on further to make, some kind of serious issue here, all right? He says that, suddenly you find that what you thought was a level of debt you could manage is harder to maintain. Ahmed says, adding to the problem, instead of cutting their national budgets to account for the lost revenue, those countries tend to borrowing to make up the difference. And then there were the cases of simply less than ideal management. I'm talking of countries like Ghana and Ethiopia, says Ahmed, where they just felt, people are willing to give us the money. Let's do it. And then they failed to use the money for productive investments. In many of these countries, about half the increase in borrowing was not associated with any increase in investment. It was just used to spend more on current spending, things like salaries. We are talking of 2018 matter here. And today, we are in it. That is why I say the IMF boys and girls are bad. If you want to follow them, you definitely fall into a hole. They knew the problem. But look at all the fanfare. Look at all the praises that they are giving you. Oh, you are this. Oh, Ghana is this. Ghana is that. But this is coming from their top boss, Mashoud Ahmed. He said this in 2018. And today, 2022, we are facing it.
So the IMF had already assessed Ghana's fiscal situation.
Exactly.
And they had already concluded. The debt situation as of 2018 was frightening.
Was very frightening.
And that it was going to get to a point where we're only going to be able to pay salary and service debt, and there won't be anything to spend the money on.
No. The point of the matter is that we were high in debt defaults. High in debt defaults.
Which is our capacity to pay back our debts.
Yes.
Was actually going down.
Down. We could not. And you see, this is where the problem is. This is why our CD has depreciated. Okay? This is why our CD has depreciated. Because the amount of CDs you need to change into dollars to go and pay for those loans. So the dollar will take it all away. Look, we have, for the past 10 years, the average import bill is about $22 billion. $22 billion. This is just the import bill, okay, for the past 10 years. Now, you want to look at how much money is being repatriated out of this country by way of proceeds or profits as a result of the FDIs.
Right.
Okay, you want to look at how much money is going out as a result of the FDIs, their profits that are leaving the shores. You want to add up to this. You want to look at other remittances that go out. How do you call it? Capital flight.
Flight, yes.
Yeah, people who have to pay for, how do you call it? School fees, other whatever. That is also going out there.
Yes.
You want to look at individuals like us traveling, how much you want to put in your pocket.
Yes.
How much your, how do you call it, international transactions will take, your Visa transactions, your MasterCard transactions, and all that. All these things are what? Siphoning the dollar out of the system.
Right.
So you see, when you talk about the balance of payments, right, the balance of payment is making it like that you are not in the position to, what, as it were, attract more foreign currency into your system.
Right.
So the little that you have, it's always going out there.
Okay.
To the extent that it continues to go, scarcity will come in, demand and supply will come. Because for those who are in that trade would have to survive, they have to live. So they will constantly be looking for the dollar to make sure that their businesses go on. So if there's a shortage of dollars in the system, automatically it will affect the currency.
Yeah.
Okay? And these are things that are very simple. At times, I just say simple things. We don't need all those kind of professors' textbook lectures. We don't need them, which is too much on the airwaves. The professors will come and sit down and start talking macroeconomics, talking about the fiscal, the inflation, the expenditure, the revenue. I mean, look, it's simple, demand and supply. If there is no demand, supply is over, and then you have a stable currency.
Michael, I'll bring you in, but let me do this. You see, when you speak to government officials, they will tell you that these structural problems have been with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
Simple. We're borrowing so much because we have needs that we need to cater for. And because we have needs we need to cater for, we can't wait till the money comes here 10, 15 years because the roads have to build, the factories have to build, schools have to build, the social interventions have to be paid for, which now includes free SHS. So you have to borrow. Okay. Now, governments after governments have borrowed. Now, the more you borrow, the more, like you said, the more cities you need to buy dollars to be able to, finance those debts. So these are structural problems that the government communicators will tell you we've had for a very long time. But what has exacerbated the problem are these external factors which have hit us.
No.
Which is that, yes, legitimate as the points you're making are, which is that the way we have structured public finances, which is how much we're borrowing, how much, and even the sectors we're spending on, and how we're not watching our debts to GDP and all of that, has been a problem with us for a very long time. But then it's only got worse because of these external factors. So it's like you have what we call underlying conditions as a human being. And then there's an epidemic.
And then COVID comes.
And there's a pandemic.
And then the underlying
now, the difference between the person who either suffers the consequences of that pandemic and the person who lives has to do with who has an underlying condition. Like we saw what happened with COVID. You are diabetic. You're likely to be hit harder when COVID strikes or any other kind of pandemic. So that's what government is telling us.
I want to tell you something here. As I just read what Mashoud Ahmed said.
Yes.
With or without COVID.
We would have gotten here.
We would have gotten here. With or without Russia and Ukraine, we would have gotten here.
Really?
But the man said this in 2018, and today we cannot pay our debts.
Wouldn't it have been more manageable?
No, let me just tell you something here. You see, that structural problem you're talking about, just as he puts it, you borrow money and you don't put it into the right investments to generate more money for you to take care of the drain pipes.
You'll be swallowed by debt.
You see, it's just common sense.
Common sense, I agree.
You are borrowing money. You don't put the money into
productive
sectors that will generate revenue for you to take care of the drain pipes.
Repay.
But then you are using the money to just
consumption.
Why would you not be there? And you see, as someone says, there is a need for a plan B at any given time. As you are planning, you ask yourself, so what if the shocks come in? How am I going to survive?
Okay.
So if there's no plan B, then it is your own making. But let me tell you something here. When you say you want to borrow money to do the roads, and today you borrowed money to do the roads, and you say you will not charge road tolls, where are you going to get the money to pay back the loan or service the roads? I mean, it defies common sense. You've borrowed money to make the roads. The roads definitely would need maintenance. But and then you have a situation where you have to pay back. You say, I won't charge road tolls.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but that's why we introduced e-levy.
E-levy
to help us shore up our revenue generation.
Capacity. You know one thing here. When you try to overtax the system, you collapse
counterproductive.
You collapse it. That is why at times someone says that. And that is exactly what
has happened to us.
Because you see, under the same monetary policy, that is what the governor is doing, trying to suck in, trying to increase interest rates so that things will not become attractive to people, so that people will not go. And then you want to use tax to... No. You see, all these things, that's why I say these textbooks economics, they don't work. Because you see, the one who is bringing out all this knowledge is looking at his environment, the way things are done there, and the one who is writing these things, he doesn't live in Ghana.
All other things.
He doesn't live in what Kukrantumi, Nyanklanduri. He doesn't live there.
The context.
You don't understand the culture of the people. The culture of the people is a big influencing factor in taking decisions and knowing how to do things. So if you sit there and you write books, and then we read the books here and go and write exams and we pass, then we think we know it. It's a failure.
So the copy and paste approach is not helping.
No, you see, it's common sense. Brain, understand. You see, you need to understand what is on the ground.
Right.
Having understood what is on the ground, then you begin to see how, based on the books that you have read, which should be a guide, then you see how you're going to manage things. After all, these same things that we read tells us one thing. He says what? Ceteris paribus.
All things being equal.
And all things are never equal.
Precisely.
So why do you want to apply those things that you have put in there?
Okay.
Because you see, the fundamentals are different. The variables are different. Okay? So you need to understand how these things work. I'll tell you something here. When you talk about, like one of the things that I've always complained about, you see, always attracting FDIs. Always attracting FDIs. Look, Ghanaians are here. Why don't you ever want to see the Ghanaian as an investor? And you think somebody should come from outside. You know one funny thing, when the president was talking about certain things that we are going to stop importation, right? And he mentioned tiles as part of the things that we are going to stop the importation. Rice, cooking oil, and he mentioned tiles. I felt so sad. You know why? Because the tiles we are talking about stopping the importation, we are going to bring a Chinese man into this country. We are going to bring a Chinese man into this country to come and do a tile production
B5.
center here. And sadly, we have even reduced the electricity tariff rates for him. But ask yourself the question. If he does it, he sells it out, will his money stay here?
Of course, you repatriate it.
You repatriate it again, so you come back to square one. So the question is this. If you can get a Chinese man, why can't you get Ghanaians together to let them do it?
Do they have the financial muscle?
That is why the central bank is there. You see, that's why I keep saying that. You see, the central bank is not living up to its responsibility because the central bank is the main area to produce, to generate economic development.
Yeah, but that's why we now have the Ghana Development Bank.
No.
Which is supposed to give loans to people who want to go into, ventures that have a direct bearing on the economy at a very cheap rate. That's another conversation we can have.
If Ghana Development Bank has a certain, mandate and whatever, leave that one. Let them so. I say the central bank. So you can say that, yes, maybe the central bank is working through the development bank because the central bank has to make available the money. You see, you make available the money through the banking system. Where now people can borrow. Look, let me say something that maybe you get me clear. You see, for some years, Gassem has been in existence for how many years? Plenty years. Gassem's money goes to Norway. We have Diamond Cement. Diamond Cement goes to what? India. You have Dangote. Is going to Nigeria. There's another company.
Jatta Cement.
No. Jatta just came in.
Jatta is just recent.
But Jatta coming in It means that if $2 million were supposed to go out, at least with data coming in, maybe about $500 million what will stay. You see? So if it was not the involvement of a Ghanaian there, it means all the monies will go out. Until MTN had to list on the stock market, which 35% had to come locally. The same way, if $2 billion were to go to South Africa for, MTN, because of the 35%, at least some $700 million will stay here.
Yeah.
So you must begin to see the Ghanaian as the main investor. Look, I'll tell you, you talked about roads, right? Roads, yeah. One of the things that I saw in roads, like the insurance company, because something is in some book, so somebody gets up and say, all insurance companies go and make available some money as minimum capital. And the insurance companies goes and throw 2.5 billion cedis away. 2.5 billion cedis away. At the time, this was around January, February. At the time they threw that money away, that money was equivalent to about $350 million. And $350 million is the amount of money we need to dualize the Accra-Kumasi highway. We need this amount of money to dualize the Accra-Kumasi highway. So you, the Minister of Finance, GIPC, all of you, what have you, come together, think deep. Look, instead of throwing this money away, when the bank would rather even invest with it and make more profits, you are not making any money on it. But if you put this money into the road, you can toll it, right? For quick returns of your money, the finance guys can structure something through cabinets to parliament where you can be exempt from corporate tax for a certain period of time, all in an attempt to recover your money. But the most important thing is that having dualized that road, head-on collisions are eliminated.
Okay.
And as they are eliminated, you, the insurance companies, you pay less claims. You get it? And it also, it all shores it up. It's building the economy, making things move on.
I get it.
You get it?
I get it.
So it's like our failure to see that the Ghanaian is an investor and therefore we can put Ghanaians together. Massa, we shall just be failing because every now and then you are talking about, this man has gone to bring about $5 million. Before you are aware, he's sending $700 million out of this country. Every year we are importing towns to the tune of about $700 million. So if this man comes and do it here, and you buy, what is going to happen? He will send that money away.
So I think the point you're making is that no foreigner will come and build Ghana
Nobody,
for us.
it's for us to see.
Ghana has to be built by Ghanaians.
We have to see it.
Now, we're going to do two things. Thank you very much, Edgar. We're going to do two things. Now, the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to put pari passu, so back to back. What the president has said in terms of the raft of sweeping measures that intends to implement in fixing the Ghanaian economy. And then we'll juxtapose that as against what the former president, John Dramani Mahama, so that you can make the judgment yourselves. But whilst at it, the KuMe Preko Reloaded, which is organized by private legal practitioner Martin Kpebu, is ongoing. And as you can see on the screens, the protesters or the demonstrators are being spoken to about why they've decided to be a part of this program or this event. So we'll go to the ground shortly, but let's do this quickly. Abdallah, I want us to compare the two ideas that are being given by the two statesmen of this country first, before we go to the grounds. If we can do that briefly before we go to the grounds. Good. So these are the measures that have been outlined by President Akufo Addo on economic recovery. One, he says, restore macroeconomic stability through an IMF-supported program. Two, tackle cost of living by working to stabilize prices of petroleum products through new supply arrangement. Encourage traders to tone down profiteering, which is contributing to inflationary pressures. That's three. Let's go to the fourth one, Abdallah. Restore debt sustainability by reducing debt to GDP ratio to 55% by 2028. And this is where it gets interesting. By 2028, the president would have been in sunset by 2028. But anyway, he says 2028, so we'll look at that as well. Improve national resources and liquidity by raising revenue from 13% to 18% by 18 to 20% of GDP. Pursue inclusive growth while protecting the poor. Let's continue. Energy sector reforms to reduce the risk of the sector to the budget. And then you also have reduced budget rigidities by capping statutory funds. Now, this particular, anyway, then we'll continue. Continue with efforts to reduce central government expenditure through budget cuts of 30%. Okay. Abdallah, are we done? Okay. Start the process of discouraging importation of rice, poultry, vegetable oil, fruit juices, etc. Tackle currency speculations to limit volatility to the cedi. Ensure no haircuts to treasury bill holders in the debt restructuring strategy. There are issues here, but that's if we have time, we'll look at it. Now, let's compare that to what the former President John Mahama has been suggesting or has been proposing by way of solutions to dealing with the economy. So Mahama's proposed solutions to Ghana's economic crisis. He says, one, reducing, so he starts by saying reducing the public debt service obligations, and creating fiscal space. So this is a framework within which the solutions are going to be profit. It says an immediate moratorium must be placed on all non-concessional borrowing. That's one. Two, government must actively canvass all bilateral partners for more concessional financing and grants. Three, there must be a stop to central bank financing of government above the 5% threshold. The current printing of money to finance government deficit is further fueling inflation. That's another one. Four, so the suspension of non-essential projects. Two, cut down of the size of government. Three, secretaries and agencies like Free, SHS, and One District, One Factory must be scrapped off. And then you have the country must strive to produce more of the food we consume. Two, cutting down on excessive import. And then revamp the Tama Oil Refinery and ensure that a refinery processes domestic crude oil. I guess we're done. So that's about it. So these are the two. We've put the two of them back to back, so that you, the viewer, can assess things for yourself. But before we go to the ground and pick the feed briefly, and then I come to Michael, who would perhaps be rounding everything up. Let me just quickly do this because some of you have been sending us loads of messages. I haven't read them yet. But this one says, hello, good morning. My name is Baliku Benjamin. It says, we have gotten to this because of mismanagement as a result of family and friends government. It will be better to live in a lion's den than to live in Ghana. Most Ghanaians are living dead. Edgar, to say the president's statement. Let me look at this. Okay, Edgar, to say the president's statement was uninspiring is an understatement. Akufo Addo is blah, blah, blah to Ghana. Malam TJ, Newtown. The word you use is not something I can repeat on air. I'm sorry, Malam TJ. Now, Ghana is no more in hot water. Rather, it's boiling up. Banzaga, Christian, Kwando Volta region, Amfuega, Blanco. And this one here says that from Sam, East Legon Hills, it says, good morning to you and your panelists. Moro, I guess you were in this country and witnessed how much money government from the COVID pandemic. I think you also heard audios of how government shared COVID monies amongst party apparatchiks. How then can you agree to the attribution of our current economic woes to only COVID and Russia-Ukraine war? The deceit is just too much and must come to an end. That's Sam from East Legon. And this one here says, good morning, Moro, please, this demo thing will not solve our problems. We have to go into agriculture and start producing what we consume in our country now. This is because in Hungary, that's why if we have what we will eat, do you think we would even be looking at the government? Nanado and his government should shift their attention to large-scale agriculture for a year or two and see how it happens. Alhaji Harun Ashaman says, President Akufo Addo cannot be trusted any longer. His 4 points to bring his 12 points. To bring back the economy from its knees is just to fool us once again. He should just resign from his post. And this one's a good morning, Moro. My name is, I've read this already. I've read this. Ayu Farouk in Tamale North says, seriously, every well-thinking Ghanaian must join the KuMe Preko Reloaded demonstration. The likes of Lawyer Mata Kwebu to lead the demonstration is a sign that all is not well in this country. Every day, increment of food items and fuel hikes. I pray Allah save us from this incompetent Nanado government. Joseph Apieje Ode from Takoradi says, good morning, Mr. Host. Saying the president will not resign in itself is an admission of how insensitive Mr. Akufo Addo has become. If he listens to the people, the finance minister will be in court now. He, the president, will be flying commercial class now, and the GS boss will go back to banking now. My name is Joseph Apieje from Takrade. And this one says that, good morning, Mr. Moro. Fantastic intellectual conversations. This is my first time watching this show, and I am stuck. That's coming from Dr. Inimihini from, where's this? Wankra. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for the messages you've been sending us. So let's do this quickly. Let's go. Abdallah, should we? Okay, so let's finish with Michael and then we can go to the grounds. All right, so Michael, you heard the president. You've made your preliminary comment about what you thought of the president's speech. If you can go now into details to tell me whether you felt that he spoke to you as a Ghanaian and whether he addressed the vexed issues there the main issues that affect you as a Ghanaian, whether you're hopeful of what the president has said. As in you have hope. Okay.
Time he spoke.
But at least
Indeed.
you
But
read
yeah,
the-
later I watched a YouTube excerpt of it.
All right.
And read the entire speech.
Right.
Indeed, it's basically the usual thing we know of the president. I always say that anytime the president purports to engage the people, and I'll come to that, I use purport, deliberately, you can see more of form than substance.
Explain
So
that.
in terms of form, the president's posture
Was on point.
sometimes appear as though he appreciates what is going on, particularly his facial expression. But I have said this without number, that the mere fact that you put a serious face does not in any way mean that you are seriously tackling the problems Ghanaians are bedeviled with. And so the posture may look like someone who is serious, but unfortunately, due to your track record and events, Ghanaians that we are expected to be carried along do not feel a part of such conversation. That is why, for instance, I have an issue with, when you look at the first paragraph of the statement, that back in 2020, at the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, I started a regular conversation. I don't know what the president means by regular conversation.
Yes.
This president we know is the president to have been on record to stop engaging the media. It used to be a convention with previous presidents where either at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, media men, press men are invited, and then we have some form of engagement with the president. That hasn't happened under Akufo Addo. Indeed, again, he said he was not going to be part of any presidential debate, if you can recall.
Yes.
So clearly, there's a president who shies away from conversation with the people. The COVID, information briefs he's talking about were just mere information briefs. He would come, recorded event, he speaks, he goes. You are a communications person, Egda as well. You know that communication is a two-way street. You engage, you get feedback. So you can't put this in your statement that the regular conversation, which came to be known as fellow Ghanaians, and so that is clearly not conversation. And last week I mentioned here that it appears the president has a democratic deficit in appreciating what even participatory democracy is. Fair enough. Again, when you look at the president's, and you came up with a very interesting analogy, the underlying condition analogy.
Yes.
That the president says, and he mentioned that in his statement again, that yes, we have some structural challenges. We know that. The late Jake Obechebi Lamte even described this economy as the Gadgetsburg economy, way back. So we already know this. Mm-hmm. We give you power. We expect you to use the powers of the state to bring transformation leadership. And so we are not expecting you to come tell us what we already know as the challenge, something you've admitted years back. So I can imagine how difficult it would be for the ordinary Ghanaian to follow or to be carried along by the president.
But Michael, sorry for interrupting, but you also appreciate the fact that these structural problems we have, which is as a result of the Gadgetsburgian nature of our economy, is not something that's going to be resolved in 6 years. It will take a lot of time. And again, we've also had the government say that it is in appreciation of this problem. That's why we're rolling out the D1F. We want to boost the productive sector.
So that's what government will always do. Even the underlying conditions are knowledge. You know what that means? COVID. Yes. We had the doctors say that when we say you have an underlying condition, it means that you may be having maybe diabetes, you may be having hypertension, you may be having
You're predisposed.
Precisely.
Yes.
Now, but you see, you may be having diabetes, I may be having diabetes, but you know how to manage your diabetes as compared to how I manage mine.
Valid.
So it is not a case of we having underlying conditions. How have you managed the process? Don't you think that your first term, and with this huge number of ministers, for instance, that was clearly going to have a toll on public finance and, for that matter, affect your finances? So you have a structural issue. You have an underlying condition. But the doctor will tell you that, listen, with this your diabetes, you have to be eating this particular kind of food. You shouldn't be excessively enjoying sugary stuffs and all that. But you so chose to be flying in a luxurious chartered.
So lifestyle modification.
Precisely.
Right.
So you can have an underlying condition, but how you manage same.
It's also important.
How you run your country, how you run the economy, being anchored on the fact that, listen, we know this is where we are. We are challenged structurally. So we have to do things in a manner that in the event that we are faced with such challenge, we shall be able to weather the storm. That never happened. So this whole and sometimes Edgar mentioned it, that it appears common sense is lacking. But upon deep reflection,
I'll beg you. Let's do this. I'll beg you. I know how it's because when you are on a certain trajectory, you stop there. Let's do this. I want us to go to the events grounds and watch what's happening. Let's get the latest.
Ghana is cast over by an impenetrable darkness of pessimism, which is unacceptable because we have a leader who should salvage us from the economic doldrums he himself and his inept appointees have plunged us into. But as we have observed, critically, the president does not have what it takes to salvage us from this. The only option left for the president to exercise now is to resign, and he must heed that call. Failure to heed that call is also testament to the fact that he has lacked wisdom, he has lacked clarity, and he has lacked perspective on issues. That the president has lacked what is necessary, or the sine qua non of the 21st century leadership, which is what? Self-awareness. A leader should be emotionally intelligent, and one of the characteristics of that emotional intelligence leadership is self-awareness. Clearly, the president don't want self-awareness. He's not. What are your demands? What do you want to be done? Simple. We want the president to resign. It's so simple. We want him to resign. That's all. He has no other option. All of them. You understand? The president should resign for the speaker to step in, because that is the constitutional arrangement, that when the president is there, the speaker steps in. That is all we are asking. You understand? And the electoral commission has 2 or 3 months to conduct fresh election. That's all. That's what we are asking. We cannot continue to have octogenarians in power in the 21st century in Africa. We cannot. Enough of the incompetence, enough of the corruption, enough of the nepotism. It's so unacceptable. The time has come for us to rise up against these octogenarians. They are destroying our best years. They have destroyed the pride and hope of this country. It's so unacceptable. We are calling on them to resign en bloc. Akufo Addo must resign. 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 Enough.
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 It's enough.
Enough.
It's enough.
And we are tired of this. Catch my back. Senior.
Wow. So you can hear some of the protesters chanting, Akufo Addo must go, Akufo Addo must resign. All right. So that's the KuMe Preko Reloaded demo, which is currently ongoing. Some of the press pursuits of Accra. Henry hasn't told us exactly where they are. But I want to believe they'll be on the Ring Road. Or is it a Kwame Nkrumah Avenue thereabouts? Okay. Or the Kojo Thompson Road thereabouts. Okay. So let's come back in-house. Michael, sorry. I hope that I didn't disrupt you so badly that you can't... you can start. You can restart. Okay. So you're analyzing the president's speech and whether it gives you hope.
Yeah, and so basically repeating what we already know.
Okay.
We know we are in a mess.
Yes, but you're saying there was a point you raised about the president should stop reading from the Book of Lamentations because he knew the problem.
Precisely.
And your question is, what has the president been doing to fix the problem?
Precisely.
Instead of regurgitating it. And I mentioned that anytime we ask government communicators this question, they'll tell you about 1D, 1F as being the trump card in dealing with the Gojisbeg economy, which is turning the country into a production-led economy. Remember the MPP's manifesto, from taxation to production.
So this is the situation. I mean...
Oh, you don't appreciate that? They've done almost 100 and something factions.
It doesn't make sense, really,
Okay.
and I'll tell you. Not even the policy itself.
Okay, makes sense.
So there is a challenge with implementation and the policy conception as well. Now, and when you look at even what is happening on the ground, a number of companies being annexed. Forget about that. You know that the 1D1F has a whole secretariat.
Yes.
With staff. And most of them are not staff that were, let's say, seconded from the Ministry of Trade, but newly recruited staff.
Absolutely.
And you know that when you go to the Ministry of Trade, the ministry as an agency has what it takes, the structures, to actually run the 1D1F without coming up with a whole secretariat with staff for the 1D1F. So it's a waste. So you tell me you are resolving a challenge, but you are hurting our public finance. But again, it's also a sign of lazy...
But you haven't done the cost-benefit analysis.
Again, it's also a sign of lazy thinking. And this is a challenge. Fundamentally, our economy is stagnant. Our economy is not growing. It's not expanding. So politicians think of, where do we prey on? What is an avenue we can create to ensure that our support base, those who supported us, get some space? The ideal thing would have been to ensure that you oil the levers of the economy to enable some expansion of the economy. Because the more you expand the economy, the more new opportunities are created, and the more you can fill in. But because it's a difficult thing to do, running a country is not a joke. It's a difficult thing to do. And so they prefer the lazy approach by day in, day out, either bloating. And that is where I may have some divergence with Eddie's description of the IMF guys as bad boys. The thing is this. They come to you and they tell you that, for instance, when you go to a state agency, well, I wouldn't mention the name. Let's say GBC, for instance. I know for a fact that the staff strength over there is way higher than ordinarily what GBC requires to run. It is same in other state institutions. We've packed them up because the economy is a closed one. It's stagnated. It's not growing. And what it means is that, any reasonable advisor will tell, listen, you have to rationalize. You have to put an embargo on employment. It makes sense because what you are doing, yes, you are employing your people, but you are ballooning the wage bill, affecting your public finances, and you have about 5, 6 people doing one thing that just one person can do. And it not be IMF way it caused this. It is your own doing. In every national constitution of any country, what they tell you is that, listen, you conduct your international affairs anchored on your national interest. So if US and the likes say, okay, we are using this Bretton Woods and these global institutions to control, it's their foreign policy. What is yours? That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. Now, when you come back to the statement, for instance, the president seeks to rally a call. But again, when you tell Ghanaians we are in this together and you want us to weather the storm together, we must see leadership from your end. Then we will follow. Now, when you say, okay, yes, we are still continuing the 30% discretionary expenditure cuts and also on salaries of ministers, deputy, there is no evidence to this. What shows us this is happening? We are not seeing it. In instances like this, visibility is key, the optics. So when President Mahama says, hey guys, just make sure you cut down the number of staff you have at the presidency, it is something that will go a long way to tell the ordinary Ghanaian that, listen, it happened in one of our neighboring countries where the entire ministries were precisely. Yeah. And with this, everybody would want to follow that something really is happening. But one of the guys mentioned something very interesting about rent and public housing. Well, it didn't feature in the president's statement, but it's one of the issues, public or social issues, confronting the ordinary Ghanaian today. We have NSS guys in the system now. Some have been posted to various places to have their national service. Accommodation is a major hurdle. I've had a number of them call me. And when they go, they have to pay. You are there for your service and just for a year. But some are being asked to pay 2 years. And without which, you can't have anywhere to sleep. There's no public support, government support. In fact, you are not even thought of, but you are expected to do your national service.
Michael, I wanted to...
You want to come in?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. Okay. I mean, so to make sense in some of these things. What do we mean by running a Georgesburg economy? What do you mean by running a Georgesburg economy? What do you mean by running a Georgesburg economy? I'm asking.
Well, it's largely import-driven. We import almost everything. We're not producing anything.
You see, Masa, we had Ghana Sanyo. We had Ghana Sanyo. When did Samsung, Binatun, Crompton, Crown, when did they come? We had Ghana Sanyo. We had Ever-Ready Battery.
True.
We had Gihawk Marble Works producing all our tiles and marbles. Okay? Name it. What didn't we have? The Aboso glass this, so and so that. So why do you say it was a Georgesburg economy? We were doing everything here. We had everything in this country. Ghana Cotton Board was there. What do you call it? Jute Factory was there. How do you call it? What's the name? Ghana Rubber producing Bonsa ties, Firestone, and all that. So what do you mean by Georgesburg economy? We were doing everything here. What went wrong? That is the bane of our problem. What went wrong? So it shouldn't be like...
You mean at the time we went importing poultry, rice, sugar, toothpick, and all of that?
We had Bontanga rice mill, right? Producing the water.
But was it sufficiently feeding every Ghanaian?
Master,
at the time,
let me tell
such
you
that we didn't have to import anything to this
Let me
country.
tell you something here.
No, but...
Let me tell you something here. Feeding every Ghanaian. We fed people and exported under Colonel Banasco.
Okay.
We fed people and then imported under Colonel Banasco. And even when the Rawlings chain came, Steve Obimpe, he turned the system round. Steve Obimpe. I begin to think that the military guys are better when it comes to the agriculture sector. When the Rawlings chain came, when we were doing the Akarakachi, yellow kenke, and those things that... you don't wait for even the kenke to be cooked. When they are doing, you go and buy your own thing and then send it out. Steve Obimpe turned that thing round. Okay? We had enough to eat. So if you tell me that we ran a Georgesburg economy, then you are suggesting that since day one, when Georgesburg was the governor, that is the kind of system we've running. No. In Nkrumah's time, we went beyond all this. Everything was done here.
You're saying it's factually inaccurate.
That's what I want to understand when you say the Georgesburg economy.
So we should come again.
This Georgesburg economy, I've heard it so many times, suggesting that we have never been able to do anything for ourselves, but then everything is what? Imported into the country. But I'm saying that all the things that were here, locally made. I mean, Gigo had more than 7 or 8, streams. Okay? We had them. Name them. Everything was done here. So some of these arguments, when they are made, you must understand where we went wrong. Where we went wrong was the fact that we became interested in titles in this country. Very interested in titles. Doctor, professor, this, that, book. Okay? So we never became practical. People who were handling those areas were the standard serving guys. San 7 for they were the people who were handling these areas. So when the graduates started coming into the system without any practical, functional training, we lost it all. And then everybody sits down today and it is all about grammar. As I said, if you have a country that you have over 1,100 grammar schools, and less than 200 technical schools, and even the technical schools, they are only learning how to patch up things, not how to create. What do you expect of your country?
Michael, please come in.
Yeah, great. So sometimes also, of course, I can clearly remember when Obechebe Lamte described our economy as the Georgesburg economy. Sometimes, in thinking about what they even mean by Georgesburg economy, I look at it also from the perspective of the exploitative character of that economy, where basically the ruling class exploited, as it so happened under colonialism.
Right.
And so whenever we talk about that, I also look at it from that perspective. So we have elites today who are sucking from the economy, who are exploiting basically the opportunities that exist and are not making it, work for Ghanaians like the era, for instance, he described. But now coming to the issue of public housing, which is very critical because we have a number of young people struggling today.
With the rent.
It featured in the 2020 campaign, and both parties addressed this in their manifestos. And when you take time to listen to the level or appreciate the level of thinking, the quality of thinking, as far as the policy proposals in the manifestos are concerned, you come to realize the kind of government we are dealing with. Now, in the NPP manifesto, and this is their online version, page 24. No, so this is their online version. This is page 157. To address the short to medium-term market failures in the renter segment of the housing market, the next NPP government would establish a national rental assistance scheme. In partnership with the private sector, the scheme will provide low-interest loans to eligible Ghanaians to enable them pay rent advance. So their antidote to this challenge of renting in this country is rather have a scheme that would dole out money to Ghanaians so they can be able to pay their rent. Now, when you look at that of the NDC, on page 24, they say that we will engage landlords, real estate investors, and tenants to review the Rent Act to provide tax incentives to landlords and real estate investors to reduce the cost of rent advance for residential and commercial purposes. Now, we know that the law says that for residential purposes, you shouldn't pay for more than 6 months. So clearly, it's a law that has fallen in abeyance. I mean, government is unable to implement the law. So what we need to do is to find ways in coming up with some modalities that would ensure that we adhere to the law, which says that, listen, when any young Ghanaian who is now beginning to put life together, who may just have been employed and on a meager salary wants to rent, and you find any space, you shouldn't be allowed to pay more than 6 months as advance. This is where we need to get to. I remember when I was schooling in Italy, for instance, my rent was on monthly basis. And it is because the state was, you can't even pay for more than a month. It's a crime.
Okay.
And so this is where we need to get to. But the NPP's proposal, we'll give you money to be able to be paying the 2 years, 3 years, which is the problem we are talking about. So they are giving you money so that the problem still subsists. We don't care whether it's 2, 3 years. We don't care whether we have to come back to what the law says. We would rather, and the mentality of doling out. The mentality of, look at what even happened with the nursing
freebies.
The nursing allowance.
Yes.
For the purposes of political gain. When we come back, we are going to come again.
Are they still paying?
Well, I mean, they're in arrears, but yes.
Now they are faced with a challenge. Yes. And the conversation is that we need to perhaps move back to what Mahama and Co. already have mentioned.
No, it was Professor Addo who said it.
We have to rethink this thing about.
We should go back to the Mahama policy.
So, I mean, everything is about the next election for this government.
No, but let me just say one thing. This thing that you're talking about. You see, this whole problem of that national service shouldn't have arisen. Not at all. You see, under the National Service Act, the first thing available is agriculture, right? And I said that if we just kept the students in their own locality, but the most important thing is that if government has found the need to secure land banks, we could have said that, look, the agriculture, that particular produce that we want our national service guys to do, okay, this will be solely for exports. Right? And you can do it in such a way that even the students at the end of the day would want to even become owners.
Okay.
Owners of that whole project. Buy shares in it and then make it their livelihood. And it will work so well for you as a nation. And this can attract a lot of foreign exchange. Okay. My brother, you are sitting here. One country exports pepper and makes over $1 billion from pepper. And we have the land, arable land, that we can do the same.
Yes.
Kenya is exporting flowers, and we are allowing Afram Plains to be a place for cattle chopping class. Now some Chinese people have come there. Wait and see what they are going to do with that land. But that land would have been very fertile for jute.
Right.
You know, I mean, we oh Jesus.
Let me do this. Just quick. I'll do just 4 messages and then we'll wrap it all up because our time is up. So this one here says, I don't have anything to say, but the only thing I want to say is Nonado and the MVP have messed up. My name is Kingsley from Suhum. A great show by all standards. Kudos, guys. But Moro, try to minimize your interjections, please. Okay, I will minimize my interjections. It's affecting the flow of your season guests. They don't want to tell you. Great job, guys. Abraham Gali.
Thank you for speaking our mind.
Abraham, you worry me. You worry me. Anyway.
So
Mohammed from Tamale says that the president has lost it all now. Time for him to listen to the citizens so that he must go. Ghana is not for Nanado and his family. The president must step down. Nana must go. Hi, my name is Said Sise from Upper West Region. I totally agree with the man with a grey beard. He said it all. I wish Presido was there to listen. Free advice and free of charge. Good morning. I am Amaru Mazuk. Please, I suggest that instead of juxtaposing the two proposals, let's rather mesh them and see how it goes to transform our economy. This one, it says, Roma is my name. Shalom, good morning. I'm joyful to see Ghanaians coming out to register their voice in this economic hardship. Many are hungry, many are sick, and many are dying. Government seems doing nothing but enjoying themselves. I heard 2022 Canada is the same as 1983. If that's so, then we must go out and put the government to work or force them to resign now. Now is the time, and the president and his team, every citizen must join the demonstration because we're suffering and many are dying, all because of government reckless borrowing and making their family rich. Pleroma is my name. And finally, the president is very clueless and lack of patriotism. With greatness, the president didn't know that we should produce our own rice, tomatoes, etc., even when he was not a president, but all because of mismanagement of the government, because of family and friends. The president is a shame to this country. And finally, good morning, Abdul talking from Adina. My question is, why is Russia and Ukraine war doesn't affect the salary and cutting down the number of ministers in this country? Okay. Unfortunately, good morning. Wondering why salaries are still same, whilst on daily basis, price of essential goods are skyrocketing. So how can both the citizens and spectators survive while still lies from officialdom? The lies are too much. Moro, is your pocket intact or is the same? We want to know. We shall sing together. Kweku Richie, Dowenya. Charlie, my pockets, it creates big hole. I'm trying to sew, it's not working. My name is Moro Addo. Thanks for watching. Let me thank Michael Abe. He's from the Frederick Ebert Foundation. Thank you very much. Fantastic guy. Same as Mr. Edgar Uredu. He is an insurance marketer and also a financial analyst as well. Thanks for watching. Same time next week, Saturday, 8 o'clock. Tell a friend. We'll be right back. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.